Hey, I'm Kalila, and I wanted to document, I guess, my journey to getting justice for domestic abuse by the way of financial abuse. It's been going on for over a year. I am a military spouse as well as a veteran. One could even say this has gone on longer than a year, right? Like, I think our relationship has just been bad the entire time. But where it became abusive was about a year ago when I chose to reconcile and with my husband and buy a house with him in Oklahoma. He acted like he wanted me and my daughter to be out there. However, that was a plan for him to try to get full custody of my daughter and to make me look unstable, which I am not. And let me tell you how. Let me tell you what this plan was. It was brilliant, right? So I'm born and raised in Florida, right? I came back to Florida after he was deployed to Korea, and I was a mayor with a newborn. I got overwhelmed, needed a lot of support. He left the house dirty. And so my mom came out there, helped me clean the house in Oklahoma, and we packed up and moved to Florida so I could get some support, some rest, hang out with my child. This was also during COVID, right? Yeah. And this is the short version. Other stuff happened in between. So the short version is I end up with my parents in Florida while he is deployed in Korea. He comes back. I did not like the way I was treated in Korea by him. The Koreans were great. He was not. I spend a year of healing. My friends come to my rescue. They get me in an awesome apartment. I do therapy. My daughter and I are living our best lives. He stops talking to me. And so then I start discussing divorce, but I didn't want to divorce him in an undignified way. Many military spouses like to leave the house empty and serve divorce notice of them overseas, and they come back with nothing. I didn't want to do that, right? I thought more highly of Greg than that. However, he's tried to do that to me or his girlfriend or whatever he got going on. So his plan was, which I did not see earlier, was to come back, act like he wanted to be with me, convince me to buy a house with him out in Oklahoma, and then force me from that house. We bought that house in July of 2021. I had a job with the city of Lawton as their arts coordinator. And by September 1st, my daughter's birthday of 2021, I was fired from that job as arts coordinator due to Greg not upholding his commitments as a parent, and also him interrupting my ability to work. Also, that job also had weird management issues, and I had a poorly trained manager. So it was twofold. It was the job's fault as well on company policy, but it was also Greg. On September 2nd, the day after I was fired from my job, he asked for a separation. Even though he had a second house that he was living at. I said, all right, I just lost my job. You don't care, whatever, right? Alina and I will figure it out. And so I applied for work all over Texas, everywhere. I got hired to work in Oklahoma City for Tesla. I moved to Oklahoma City 2 weeks later, take my daughter with me, enroll her in Creme de la Creme daycare in Oklahoma City. It was amazing. We had our gym, we had our job. I had a great townhouse apartment. It was great. Until I start allowing him to come and see Alina, right? Greg is a very charming, quiet guy. And so most people do not see him as a threat. I allowed him to come see Alina. However, he would come at times that that we had not agreed upon. So I was either at work or he would not watch her, which would cause me to have to leave work early, right? Which caused me to lose my job at Tesla, because Tesla has a very zero tolerance policy when it comes to professionalism issues. This is financial abuse, right? It's also spousal abuse. It's also emotional abuse. Some could even say it's child abuse because he's using my child to cause me to not be able to provide. And so I filed a report with the Oklahoma City Police Department, and I was forced to go back to my home in Lawton. When I did that, I found out he had changed the locks. I had to call his commander to get him to unlock my house. And if he had not, I would have called the police. Looking back now, I should have called the police and made a police report about that, because that is an illegal eviction, right? You cannot change the locks on a resident in which somebody owns it. And so he comes back, leaves a key for the new lock. I get that. I'm able to enter that house, find out my uncle dies, and I come here to Florida, ask him to come to the funeral. He refuses. So I come here with my daughter to my uncle's funeral. Somebody leaves a dead cow in the road. And so at 3 a.m. I hit that cow, and it takes 3 weeks for my car to get fixed. After that, so I'm stuck in Florida for 3 weeks. After that, I come back up to, Oklahoma, and I stay in that house. He was not expecting that. He goes on vacation. And so Alina and I have a Christmas by ourselves in that house. Our friends and neighbors provide for us. My uncle provides for us, and we have a great Christmas. He comes back from vacation and makes the house unsafe again. And by this time, I had gotten an acceptance from architecture school in Boston with a full ride. And so me and Alina, off we go. However, we go to Massachusetts. I have an attorney that advises me to make sure that I get it in writing that Greg is okay with me taking Alina out of state lines. And so I do. And we are in Massachusetts. I'm trying to live. Where I messed up was still trying to honor Greg's parental rights by letting him know where we are. In the future, if you are suffering from domestic abuse, whether it's financial, emotional, spousal abuse, do not let your abuser know where you are, when you get out of the situation. Even if you have kids, make them go to court, okay? But if you are suffering an abusive situation and you are literally running from your life or running for your life to get a better livelihood, do not let your spouse know where you are. Because there is a clause, which I've read later, that if there is a documented history of domestic abuse, that can be your defense for if they take you to court, okay? So that was my mistake. I should not have let him know that I was in Massachusetts, and I should not have relied on anybody who knew Greg in Massachusetts for a basic need. And so that basic need was housing. I tried to do right by Greg and have housing with a mutual friend. That mutual friend was told things that were untrue about me and Alina, and she also illegally evicted us. I called a lot of domestic violence shelters. None of them would take children. And so I found a nonprofit that paid for a hotel for me and Alina to stay in while we figured things out. Massachusetts did a really good job with trying to help us. However, the police came, and I assume they were sent by Greg, and started an investigation. My friends were like, hey, don't talk to the police. The police up here are really nice, but they shiesty. Be careful. I should have listened to them, because later, when after there was a break in my semester, there was also a break in my work. I had gotten a job as a daycare or as an after-school teacher at Pace down in Roxbury. And there was a break in that work. There was also a break in my education. And I'd gotten a bit overwhelmed. I'd come down to Florida with my family. People were starting to get sick. So I came down to Florida. And I get called back up to Massachusetts to move my stuff, right? Just so happens when I come back up, the police are there waiting to take Alina. And they do. They take her. They say that I need to go under a mental evaluation. I go under that for 2 days. They find out nothing's wrong with me. But they refuse to release Alina to me or my parents or my village of over 20 people. And so they put her in foster care. She exits out of foster care. And my husband is the only one who's notified of this. And he manages to come get her and leave the state of Massachusetts without notifying me. So I don't know that she's gone. Maybe like a month later or sometime later, he video chats me and shows me that she's in Oklahoma. And we do this twice. I'm not able to get to Oklahoma. Then I ask for his assistance. He doesn't want to help. Whatever, right? I should have put in a report for parental kidnapping, but I didn't know what to do. And so, anyways, I stay in Massachusetts. I'm still trying to figure things out. I'm still trying to, regain a job. I'm still trying to stick with my schooling. Because that whole trial, that whole month that my daughter was in foster care and I was battling the court system, essentially bankrupted me. My housing was no longer being paid for. I wasn't able to work because the case was at different times. Very similar to the same method Greg used to cause me to lose my job. And so I ended up doing DoorDash and becoming a delivery driver to make a little bit of money and doing some ends meet. After that ordeal, somehow I managed to stay in Massachusetts. People were very kind, and I was able to get a consulting client in which I used that money to buy a boat that allowed me to live and count as an actual residence in Massachusetts. After now I've gotten myself set up and, sitting up, I choose to come back to Florida for the holidays, right? It's now December or November. Trying to figure out, let's figure out where my daughter is for Thanksgiving. I go to Oklahoma. Which is our house, which is where my daughter is supposed to be. She's not there. And so I come to Florida and I ask my parents, hey, like, what is it I'm supposed to do? Because a parent is supposed to notify you, at the very least, where your daughter is. That does not happen. And so somehow I figure out he's at Fort Stewart and go there. And now I'm working to get him to give me access to my child, because him denying it is against the law. And all of this is domestic violence, right? I mean, there's no way about it. Like, this is emotional violence. This is psychological violence. This is financial violence. Like, I don't know how anybody can expect somebody to focus and work and be a contributing member of society when their child is being dangled over them like a carrot, right? And the person who's doing it is being protected. And so the advice that I've gotten by a lot of people now is that since it's now obviously spousal, abuse, emotional abuse, and, he's blatantly keeping Alina away, I need to hold him accountable. Right? This is not okay. And so that's what we will do. So now it's time to file all of the reports. I know some investigations take 5 years. Luckily for me, he messed up really big this past year. So I don't have to continue to try to prove my case, because she should be in Oklahoma. And when he chose to move her out of Oklahoma, he should have notified me. And the fact that he has not told me specifically where Alina is, that's against the law. And the fact that he has taken, my business documents and all of that, that's also against the law. So, may justice be served. And the reason why I'm documenting this and posting it is because I've been run around by so many people. I guess domestic violence, people just only view domestic violence as somebody getting physically hurt, or maybe women still don't have as much rights as we think they do in this country, right? Because it was in the 1980s when women were allowed to have bank accounts and credit cards. And so, yeah, maybe a lot of this is new because people aren't used to like financial or emotional or spousal violence, right? Maybe people aren't used to women actually having companies and ideas that are separate from their husband, that their husband is not supposed to have access to. But in this case, that's what has happened. Like, you cannot take my ideas and my work that was legally registered and sell it on your own behalf. You know, you cannot take my child, my daughter, and not notify me of your location and where she is. And as a military officer, you cannot cut off the money that Congress has given to you to give to me. All those things are financial abuse. So, yeah, hope we do better in 2023. That's the blog for today.